Today I'm fitting some industrial reclaimed style shelving. They're made from old scaffold boards. I'll talk you through how I've done it, and it might be helpful to you if you've got a similar project in mind. So the way that they're supported is using some angle iron. Now I just bought this on eBay rather than going to source full lengths and cut them down myself. I found these at 250mm long and other lengths in 50mm increments. And I decided that length would do well for these shelves, which are around about 30 centimetres deep. So they fit with a bit of space front and back, which I think works. And the way I've fitted them, like most things I fit to the wall, I've used a 6mm drill hole with the hammer drill. And these red plugs, which are Uno plugs made by Raw Plug, they're the best plug I found, and I very rarely use anything else. They look like this, and they will grab into plasterboard or solid wall. They have a bit of a rim. So 6mm plugs, and then for most of the holes I've used 8 by 2 inch screws. So they're about 50mm long. And we prepared these brackets by drilling them on the drill press and countersinking them. So that's the side that fits to the wall. We drilled them nearer the top because if you think of the rotational force pulling on them, they're going to work better drilled at the top. And then they're drilled that way for the bottom fixings. Now, if you've done much drilling into walls, you'll know sometimes you hit a mortar joint or a loose brick or something. So my approach is to always be prepared with some bigger plugs, so some 7 or 8mm ones. Because when you get a loose hole, if you just whack a bigger plug in, often that sorts the problem out. You can also then go up to a fatter screw. So for some of these holes, I've used a 10 gauge by 60mm screw, and occasionally I'll drive more plugs in, so the screw's engaging into a plug further into the hole. So that's how I do it. So I've got all these brackets secured, apart from that one where I just showed you where the plug's gone in. We prepared these lengths of shelving oversize, longer than they need to be, and we also biscuit jointed them together, as you can see from this offcut, because the original scaffolding board is 22 centimetres wide, so we ripped some in half and fitted those offcuts, those long offcuts, onto the back to make up the length nearer to 30 centimetres, which the customer wanted. So I've then measured my gaps between the brackets, cut the pieces, and using the method that I usually use for alcove shelving, I drop the pieces in at an angle, so it'll drop into one end. I hold it tight to the wall, and then I can see if that end where it can go tight, because it's over long, but it's on the angle, I see if there's any more trimming that needs to be done, because that's highlighted as it touches the wall there. There might just be an angled cut to be done. Same the other side, and I drop them in. Now I was considering notching the front edges so that you get a tighter joint at the front, but I decided for the look, the sort of rough look of this, that simple would probably look better. And the customer had sent me an image of the sort of thing she wanted, which was in fact a lot less tight at the ends than that, and certainly didn't have a notch. With these pieces having been patched together, and us not wanting to sand out the rustic look of them, on some of them there was quite a step, which in fact wasn't the joint that we made. This was the original board, and this is just because it's been cut in 2 passes on a big table saw at the original sawmill. So we left that in. I decided to put that on the bottom so that the shelf surface is smoother, and to avoid that not sitting tight on the bracket, I notched that out with the rail saw. I'll drop a photo in to show that, so that it would then pull tight. A comment on that: if you're someone fairly new to woodwork, there are situations like that where you can remove material very roughly and just keep the visible edge neat. There's a common mistake for people beginning joinery, especially finished or second fix joinery, when they're keen to do a good job. The mistake is doing too good of a job where it doesn't matter. So when you need to get something done quick, sometimes just a rough cut, clearing away the material, knowing it won't be seen, sometimes that's the most professional approach to get the job done and get it fitted properly. So onto how we prepared these in the workshop. We sanded them down to 180 grit, but taking care not to go overboard. We wanted to leave a lot of the natural texture, but to ensure that there were no splinters. And in some places you can see by sanding more, the wood's lighter even after the stain is applied, and that's nice for this look. The stain we applied, it was Bry Wax, I've got it here, Bry Wax Rustic Pine. So that's just rubbed on with a rag, left for a few minutes and then buffed back off. And that again, that adds to the look, because where it goes into the pores it looks darker, where it's buffed off a flatter surface it looks lighter. The screws we used for fitting the brackets up into the shelves were these 25mm long gold screws. So that's 8 by 1 inch, 8 gauge. When they're sold as millimetre sizes, it's 4.0 by 25. The gauge just tends to be half. I wanted to tell you the difference, but it's gone out of my head. But the gauge basically refers to the width and chunkiness of the screw. So they looked good, I thought, with the golden colour against the wood. So I only used silver screws into the wall where they were hidden. I meant to say that the angle iron I got, it's a 40 by 40mm, and the shelves are 35mm or thereabouts. You see a little bit of angle iron on top, which I think is okay. One more thing I wanted to discuss with you, which is a bit of a bugbear of mine and may not be obvious to people who are new to working with wood, is when you're working with solid wide timber sections, it's good just to be conscious of the way that wood shrinks. So when you take wood from a timber yard or an outdoor storage area or a cold workshop into a house, it's bound to reduce its moisture content as it's a less humid environment, and it will then shrink. So if you look at a piece of wood like this, you see how those growth rings go across that very wide board. Now, I'm going to struggle to hold this. Let's just see if I can do that the way I want. So your rings are going like this. So the centre of the tree was there, and this board was cut from just off the centre of the tree. When the wood shrinks, the shrinkage happens majority along the rings. It happens very much less in the length of the grain, very small percentage of shrinkage there, but these rings will contract, so they're trying to get shorter as the material loses moisture from its cells. So what that means, if you can imagine it, is that as these all pull shorter, a curve will be introduced that will curve like that. So these two edges of this board will move that way, and the centre will move that way. I think I've made that clear. So I like to just be conscious of that when I'm fitting something, and would generally fit it in such a way that the front and back edge raise, so the curving would tend to sort of be like that, rather than there be sort of like a dish at the top. That's my preference. It depends on the scenario. There might be other reasons why you don't do that. But it's something to look out for, something I always like to teach people that are starting woodwork. And it's say if you're buying edge laminated timber like pine board that you can buy from B&Q or whatever, we've got lots of strips of pine glued together to make a wide solid board. That's great because you erase some of that issue with a single wide piece, which is always going to be prone to burring. The quality pine boards, when you look at that end grain and you see those curves of the growth rings, they should alternate, so they should curve one way then the other, and that will balance out the flatness. So over time there might be a slight undulating of it, but it should broadly remain flat. So just look out for that and consider that when you're fitting timber in this sort of circumstance. So that's about it. I hope that's helpful if you're thinking of doing these kind of shelves. And as ever, thank you for watching, and do subscribe for future insights into the making and fitting of fitted furniture.